the economic woes. Well, if you're some people, you're going to go back as far as Ronald Reagan to blame him why in 2023 we got problems. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rant Network, a podcast hosted by my good friend Stuart Brisgell, and I'm David Solomon, where we bring you unfiltered, uncensored conversations live and unedited on a wide range of topics. The podcast is dedicated to giving you the platform to express your opinions, share your thoughts, experiences, and ideas, and hear from a variety of perspectives and honest, brutally sometimes honest opinions. Join us as we dive into the latest news, pop culture, politics, economics, and so much more. From rants about the absurdity of modern life and how people are stupid at times and how they think, to discussions about the deeper issues affecting our society. Folks, we at the Rant Network have you covered. Sit back, relax, and enjoy as I blew through that introduction. So look, I started by saying, who do you blame? Because in politics, Stuart, everybody's got to point a finger at somebody. They either take credit for something that they're really not doing, or they blame somebody for something someone else may have done. And it's classic blame, not accountability. And we've talked about this previous rant. Accountability by a politician is an oxymoron. It's a total contradiction in terms. It has got nothing to do with doing the right thing. It's about blaming somebody so that they can get a vote. But when you're around everyday people in your financial world and whatever, what are some of the absurd, stupid things you've been hearing lately?
Thanks, David. I think today is a great day. I go to a networking meeting. I try and go every Friday. It's a LaTip group in Broward County, Florida, where I've been the financial advisor for the group probably since 2016, 2017, don't remember that far back, but we've survived, and it's one of the better groups in the area. And the president of the association of the group, a guy named Jared, came to me this morning and said, "What is this about Fitch downgrading the U.S. Credit rating, and what does it really affect, or this, that?" And he's not a dumb guy. He understands a lot. But, one reason that Fitch downgraded, the U.S. credit rating was the absence of any political will to deal with the main drivers of the deficit. Okay. Now, spending programs, Social Security, Medicare, and repeated cuts to tax rates for most households. Okay. So we understand what that means. Now, JP Morgan's, Jamie Dimon, Blackstone, people that need to be politically center and neutral and not throw any government under the bus, literally, especially in these political times. It wasn't necessarily the best thing for Fitch to do, and they're the only agency that have done so. And my response to this gentleman by the name of Jared was, it was done for the right reasons. And do I agree with it? No, but I do agree with it because, accountability has to start with the government. And if the government has no accountability, then, it's a bigger problem, and everyone's got to understand it. And who does it affect? You, me, and this guy named Jared. So Jared's response was to me, you got to tax the rich. And I said, well, that doesn't work. You can tax the rich another 5 or 10%, and it's not going to move the needle, right? And he goes, well, that's such a Republican answer. And the next thing he comes out with, he says, we got to cut Reaganomics. Now, what is Reaganomics? Reaganomics was cutting the federal income tax, cut for, I guess, in the U.S. government spending budget, cutting useless programs, scaling down the government workforce, maintaining low interest rates, and keeping a watchful inflation hedge on the monetary supply. Reagan's formula for success for the turnaround. Now, the question is, was it successful? Was it not successful? There are groups that say it wasn't as successful as everyone once thought it was, but nevertheless, at the time, it did things and powered and boosted Clinton's second term, where Clinton came to be a centrist, right? And did things for our economy that were off of the fruits of Reaganomics, which gave him a balanced budget, the first time in many decades in this country. So, again, the conversation continued with this gentleman about all these measures about creating jobs in America, and how by all these measures that they're doing now is right in creating jobs in America. And I said, wait a minute, you want the Green Deal? That's like EVs and stuff. That's electric vehicles. All those batteries are not creating jobs in the United States. All of those cars are being assembled partially in the US, but all of the components are sourced from another country. So where are we creating jobs with this Green New Deal? I mean, it's just moronic. And again, to understand economics, you really have to take a step back and look at the basics, the brass nuts. If you borrow more than you can repay, you got a deficit that is growing. And the United States deficit's growing at a rate beyond anyone's alarm bells. It's like nuclear bells going off. But again, the left goes to anyone on the right. You're a Republican. That's a Republican answer. You want to kill the environment. And, I then went to the same gentleman. I said, if every vehicle in America was no longer combustible, what would that change the emissions rate for the globe over 10 years? I said, a decimal point, if that, because every other country on earth would be increasing their carbon emissions, producing all the elements so that we can be carbonless. Again, trying to take the minority and make them a priority in an illogical, irradical, right? And not irrational and radical manner isn't going to solve anything. And I think that that's where lies the big problem, where the minority is trying to be the majority. And everyone needs to cow-tip to a minority in a nonsensical, non-logical, partisan, stupid way. It doesn't work. It's kind of like the kids at school that have the viewpoint that not going to school is good, just everyone's just not going to school. It's just literally, if you saw your friend jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge, you think it's a good idea. You should do it too. This is where I think everything is going. And this Jared guy is just beyond lost, doesn't get it. Because if you look at your balance sheet, you're getting killed and taxing rich more. There is no more to tax. Yes, the rich have tax loops and things that middle class doesn't have as much of, right? But he said, I think we got to take money from the Waltons. Well, the Waltons, if you know anything about the Walton family, they employ more. I think they're the 5th or 6th largest employer in the country. I mean, there's a Walmart store in every single city in America. But jobless claims are going down. Every Amazon driver is an independent contractor. Every Uber driver is an independent contractor. People that are creating their own companies on the internet and creating alternative incomes are no longer be able to file for jobless claims because they're not employed. So everyone is touting numbers and skewing them to meet their argument and not looking at the brass facts. I mean, yes, it's hard to hire people because that Uber driver is making himself without having to answer to anyone, and he loves it. The Amazon driver who's a contractor doesn't have to account for it. And now UPS has a new competitor on the market because Amazon is now starting to do small and heavy package delivery, which is going to eat right into the union market of UPS and FedEx. Guys, you're screwed. You're going to be out of a job because people aren't going to ship FedEx and UPS because Amazon, baby, it's in that business now. So I guess, Jared, you need to take a step back, take your partisan hat and shred it because your understanding of economics is really lacking. David, I'm sorry. I went on 10 minutes. I didn't think I was going to get 3.
Well, so Stuart, I think part of the problem, and I think what you're saying is, and this is the the mantras. This is the left, like spewing. You hit it bang on. It's like, enough already about catchphrases. Let's talk real. A report came out, I believe it was yesterday or this week, that says inflation is up over a year since Biden came into power, over 17%, and real wages is down 3%. That's, to me, that is not Reaganomics. Okay, that's just an administration that had 2 years, 2 full years to put in place real legislation and did not, and needed to blame somebody. If there was success, they would take the success and say, look how wonderful we are, as in the Biden Inflation Reduction Act, which turned out to be not an Inflation Reduction Act. It turned out to be, let's pad the pockets of the green people. All right, those that wanted green climate change. So Democrats, folks on the left, are listening to headlines, they're listening to catchphrases, but they're not grasping is really what all these programs are all about. No one's going to sit and read these stupid legislation. I get you. But at the end of the day, let's talk about what a real person cannot afford anything anymore. Okay, and with all due respect to your friend Jared and to others, this isn't Reaganomics. And to sit here and say we need to tax the rich, all you're doing is putting more money into the government so that they can spend more. But that doesn't mean that they're spending it smartly. And this is the problem I have. When you give incompetent people more money, they spend it incompetently. And that is what the Biden administration has done. They've spent it in a stupid fashion that does not help everyday people. It doesn't reduce inflation. To sit there and lie to the population to say, Stuart, that they've paid down the debt when the debt is at an all-time high. I'm trying to understand where the numbers are. And, again, the fact checkers aren't yelling at Biden saying why. Okay, you yelled at Trump for 4 years every time he opened his mouth. He didn't say a word. He opened his mouth and said, oh, no, it's wrong. Fact checker said it's wrong. No one is challenging Biden by saying, your numbers are wrong. Americans are against hate Bidenomics. Americans are tired of listening to BS. Gas is going up again. And of course, what does Biden do? Blames somebody else. But when prices went down, he said, look how wonderful we are. This is when people are not going to take the time to understand real economics, this is what's going to happen. The truth of the matter is that if you continue to borrow more and pay more interest, especially now with interest rates going up, you're just indebting yourself. You're creating more problems. And
it's having no plan. But David, it's not just
worse than that.
Creating more debt. It's having no plan, and no method on repayment of that debt.
But you
can't forgive that debt.
No, but Stuart, here's the problem, okay? And this is the problem I have in Canada, and I see this in the United States, is that you have administrations who sit there saying, I'm going to spend because over the next 8 years, I want to get elected. And then the problem is the next administration's problem. It's not mine. Okay. And I've seen this in Canada. I've heard elected officials say that. So, do you think Joe Biden really sits there and cares? He wants to make sure that his legacy is solid. He doesn't give a crap. He wants to be like Obama, 2-term president, and then goodbye. Leave me alone.
Well, when you talk about Biden and wanting to be, known as something good. I mean, I don't know. I sort of don't get how you can get there. The man has got a political path, a history of lying and copying and cheating from the 1988 election, going all the way back. Not even going forward, going back from 1988.
Stuart, we know about it, and we know, but this administration economically is going to ruin the United States in such a way that at the end of the day, the next administration will have a problem. Anyways, folks, listen, we have reached the end of our week and another week of rants. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode and listening to the Rant Network. We hope you've really enjoyed this conversation, and we had so much more to say, but we only take 15 minutes. And we would invite you to really, take these insights and reflect on it and get back to us. Share this with your friends. Comment us on Facebook, YouTube, you name it, wherever we're at. You can catch us on all the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. We are there. We are live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Eastern. Join us. And really go to our website, check out some of our previous rants. We love you guys. Thank you so much. Have yourself a wonderful, wonderful weekend.